Okay, fantastic. We are live. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome online. We're live streaming on YouTube. We're also live streaming through Zoom and into other places on the internet. Do us a favor, type in where you're watching us from. Now, we're in 74 different countries, and with that in mind, some people do not speak fluent English. So we have a solution for that. If you just have a quick listen to this.
Por favor, vaya a la parte inferior de la pantalla en Zoom o YouTube y haga clic en subtítulos para leer en español.
Kérlek, menjünk képernyő aljára, a Zoomon vagy a YouTube-on, a Closed Caption részre, és ott el tudod olvasni magyarul a feliratot.
Silakan klik di layar bawah pada Zoom atau YouTube dan klik caption untuk membaca dalam bahasa Indonesia.
Pour les sous-titres en français, veuillez cliquer au bas de votre écran Zoom ou YouTube sur CC ou Closed Captions.
Zoom または YouTube の画面の下部に移動し、字幕をクリックして日本語で読んでください。
請到屏幕底部點閱隱藏字幕以閱讀中文.
Παρακαλώ πηγαίνετε στο κάτω μέρος της οθόνης, στο Zoom ή στο YouTube και κάντε κλικ στους υπότιτλους για να τα διαβάσετε στα ελληνικά.
請到屏幕底部點擊隱藏字幕以閱讀中文.
אנא עברו לתחתית המסך בזום וביוטיוב ולחצו על תרגום לכתוביות בעברית.
Proszę zejść na dół ekranu na Zoomie lub YouTubie i kliknąć napisy, żeby przeczytać po polsku.
Alrighty, just had to pause just for a second there. I had a big truck drive past, very loud. Welcome online, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michael Firth, one of the founding Field Advisory Board members of NUMI, and it's my pleasure every week to host this call with our awesome founder, Steve Scott. It's an opportunity for you to be up close and personal, get to know the heart of the organisation and the vision behind Steve. Now, if you don't know Steve Scott, Steve was behind the Total Gym with billions in sales as one of the most influential people in direct response television. I met Steve 17 years ago, where he's pioneering the research space in glutathione, which leads us to where we are today. And I can see we've got people logged on from Hawaii, Las Vegas, New Zealand, Perth, Western Australia, Canada, and Florida in the building. So lots of people online. And if you're online on social media, please, even watching the replay, just tell us where you're watching it from down the track. With that in mind, I'm going to hand you to our founder, Stephen K. Scott.
Thank you, and hello everybody, my dear friends and NUMI family all over the world. I'm excited about a lot of things. One thing, in just a few weeks, I get to go to Europe and get to go to Poland and let's see, where else? Croatia, Greece, and I get to have a day-long meeting with the newest member of our medical board, our scientist there, a genetic scientist named Sotiris Nikolopoulos. And I am so looking forward to this trip. Sotiris, man, you want to call him Nicholas, but it's not Nicholas, it's Sotiris Nikolopoulos. Try saying that 10 times real fast. And But he and I have been talking weekly, and he's been sending me astounding results, results nobody else in the world is seeing on genetic expression. And he has a novel technology, and I asked one of our scientists about it today, and he says, oh, no, his is really novel. It is superior in that it can see gene expression, whether it's overexpressing, underexpressing, or in the normal range. And what's been wonderful is he's taken, among other things, he's taken 9 of the key inflammation genes, and he has charted them as the patients begin using NUMI, NutraSwish. And to his amazement and all of our amazements, it normalizes the genetic expression in these genes that their expression generates inflammation. If they are overexpressed, it brings them down to normal. If it's underexpressed, it brings them up to normal. Now, how does that happen? That's pretty miraculous when you think the same ingredients can lower overexpressed genes to normal and bring underexpressed up to normal. And what's the result? Of course, less inflammation and less consequences that normally result from inflammation. Now, we are not an anti-inflammatory. In fact, I'll say at the beginning that we are a supplement. We are not a drug. We do not diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure any disease states. We're a supplement. But what we do is we have a delivery mechanism, a delivery technology that nobody else in the world has, and it allows us to deliver particles at minute sizes, almost near molecular sizes. And we'll get into that. But it's not just being able to do that, it's what you do that with. And we started with the molecule that can bring the greatest result if effectively delivered. So you could deliver a lot of different, you could deliver drugs this way. But we chose a molecule that is really your body's miracle molecule. It's called glutathione. And I'm not sure how many new people we have here. People keep coming into the room. But for those of you that aren't new, you're going to hear the same old, and a little bit more. We're having talks with some very important people. You know, we have evidence, what they would call anecdotal evidence, that we make a huge difference in a lot of different areas in life, including athletic performance and athletic recovery. Today I was on the phone with a trainer in Houston, Texas, who is very renowned and has the ability to do a lot of different testing with our product to prove that it does what we already know it does, but we can't claim it. We can't promote those results because we haven't sponsored any clinical studies, and that's for a reason. When you sponsor a study and you fund it, guess what happens? It's not an independent study, so it instantly becomes suspect. We would rather have people do things that we don't pay for, do studies, and let them get all the glory, let them copyright the study, publish the study, and get all the glory for it. And then we, in turn, will quote the study. And so we had a very long discussion with a gentleman today that wants to do that. In fact, we had a couple discussions. We had another gentleman in a different part of the country wanting to test at a clinical level, but biochemically, what's going on. Now, we already have one scientist in Greece who has done some genetic testing, and his tests are unique or novel in that they can quantify the changes in output of the genes. Is it overexpressing? Is it underexpressing? Is it expressing in the normal area? And then he can watch if something changes that. Thankfully, when it comes to the inflammatory genes, and I'll read these to you real quick. You can write them down if you want. This is not being recorded. I guess we are going to be on Facebook, but these are the.
Yeah, I was going to say, Steve, we are live on and playback.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to give any medical results. This qualifies as what's called structure function. But here's the genes that he looks at for inflammation. COX-2, tumor necrosis factor alpha, transforming growth factor beta, nuclear factor NF kappa beta, interleukin 1 beta, interleukin 6, interleukin 8, interleukin 10, interleukin 12 beta, and PGP, which is P glycoprotein. Now, impacting those genes makes a big difference in how you perform from the time you wake up till the time you go to bed. And good news so far with the clients that he's measured this, that he has put onto our program, we have made an incredibly positive impact on all these genes and some other ones, including a couple in particular that are very hard to modulate and mediate. And yet he's seen that in a very, very big way. And the expressions and the outcomes of those genetic expressions being impacted has been phenomenal. Things that he is so excited. He said, you know, I could get this published tomorrow. That's how big of a breakthrough we have. Well, we know it. We have seen it over and over again. So what really do we have? We have two things that are unique to us. Number one, we have a delivery technology called Hydrostat. You see, it's easy to get glutathione in the bloodstream. All you have to do is somehow get it through the stomach. And to do that, you'd have to cover it with a liposome because the stomach destroys the glutathione molecule and one of its peptides that it's made up out of in the cell called cysteine. They're very fragile. And as soon as they hit the stomach, they break apart and your cells will not accept a broken molecule in this case. And so to get around that, people have put liposomes. Now, the benefit of a liposome, if you put a liposome is basically a fat, a lipid. And if you put something big enough around the particle, I'm trying to find something small that I can demonstrate this with. Here we go. So we'll say this is a molecule. Now, if you wrap it in a fat, a lipid, what do? You may protect it through the stomach, but look what happens. It's much bigger when it's wrapped with a fat. In fact, it's too big in most cases, nearly all cases, to get into the cell. So what happens? It sits on top of the cell. That's nice, but that's not where the cell needs it. Now, some liposomes will have a little bit of penetration through what's called forced diffusion. And that's a force on top of the liposome, just pressing hard enough that it kind of seeps in at a surface level into the cell a little bit, or from the side of the cell as that pressure is applied. That's called forced diffusion. Not efficient, minimally effective. That's what's available, readily available on the market for you when it comes to glutathione. You can get liposomal glutathione. You can get it in different forms, but no matter what, it still has that darn layer of fat around it. And so the doctor himself, he's on our medical board now. We have a great medical board, and Dr. Nikolopoulos is on because it's a science and medical board. And he was on liposomal glutathione for a long time. Bought the most expensive, highest grade liposomal glutathione on the market. It's from Germany. And he said he almost never felt anything, but he knows that glutathione does something for his body. And even if he gets a little bit, that's better than nothing, was, I guess, his thinking. Then somebody gave him our product, one of our NUMMI family members. And guess what happened? Instantly, within minutes, he felt the difference. And within 2 weeks, he saw the difference in a very big way, not only in how he felt, but how he performed in his workouts. His workouts became more effective, more efficient, more productive, which means you lift more weight or you run faster or you run for a longer time and so on. All that happened. So he then decided to look into our technology. When he saw our technology, he understood what made us different, and he put some clients on our product. He measured their genetic outputs with different genes, usually the inflammatory genes and a few others. And then at the 14-day mark, at the 21-day mark, at the 8-week mark, he would take readings to see what had changed. the results were beyond imagination, not only in the readings, but in the performance levels and the quality of life. That's a good one we can use. The quality of life levels. One lady was in her 70s, and he has been working with her for years to no avail on modulating. He said she was just riddled with inflammation from all of these genes, and nothing he did could mediate those. In 8 weeks, guess what happened? They were all normal. And she was like a brand new person in her mid to late 70s. But anyway, that may not sound like much, but it is so huge. I can't even tell you. In fact, it's reminded me, we talked on, today's Thursday, so we talked on Tuesday. Now he's 9 hours ahead of me, so it was what time? I think it was, I can't even remember. It was morning time, my time. It was bedtime for him. And he said, I keep telling you, Steve, this is so much bigger than you have ever imagined. Well, people have accused me of being a visionary my whole life, and being able to see where opportunities are, opportunities for technological advancement and so on. My first company that we started with $5,000 ended up doing billions of dollars in sales, and all the sales were driven. I would get a vision for a product. I would see that it was a breakthrough. We would modify the product any way we needed to make it mass acceptable. And then we would put it on TV with a celebrity and market it. And just one of our programs called the Total Gym. That's a piece of fitness equipment. And we sold billions of dollars worth of equipment. It's the longest running television marketing campaign in history. It's been on the air now for 28 years with Chuck Norris and Christy Brinkley. But that was a vision. I had a vision for it. Product was way too heavy, too big. It had been made for rehab facilities. Ugly as sin. You had to assemble it. I knew it wouldn't be a good product. So I got a vision of making it more compact, making it so you didn't have to assemble it, so it'd come in one piece, making it so it would fold up and go under the bed, and it became the #1 piece of strength training equipment, home strength training equipment in the world. And instead of being in 4,000 rehab facilities, it's now in about 45,000 rehab facilities. 45 million people a year just in the United States are rehabbed on the Total Gym. Well, it all starts with a vision. And I'm telling you, my vision was way too small for what we have. And Dr. Nicolopoulos and the other members of our science board and medical board, they are saying, whoa, we're more like this. We're more like Mount Everest, and you're treating us like we're a large stone you could pick up and throw. So my vision is being expanded here at 76 years old. Anyway, so it's not just the delivery technology. That's one breakthrough, and that's enormous. If you can't get in the cell, tough luck. And because we don't wrap our glutathione and cysteine particles in fats, instead we wrap them in a matrix of ultra pure water. Now, the disadvantage of that is you can't get it through the stomach. It still won't go through the stomach. The good news is it doesn't have to. The particle sizes are so small that they absorb right into your mucous membranes inside your cheeks, in the venous cavity under your tongue, and in your esophagus on the way down. So that's pretty good. In fact, from the time you finish swishing until the time all the glutathione and cysteine is actually out of the blood and in the cells is, drum roll please, 70 seconds. That's fast. That's why athletes can swish 5 minutes before they start an event, get the full impact of the product. And glutathione normally has a half-life of 1 to 4 hours. And the average half-life in your 37 trillion cells, it runs around 90 minutes. So we have endurance athletes that will swish our product right before an event. And then every hour of the event, throughout the event, even if it's an 8, 10, 12-hour event, doesn't matter, they'll swish every hour. Why? It keeps them from dealing with the half-life of glutathione. They get maximum potency from beginning to end. Pretty smart. You can't do that with any other glutathione product, not even close. Now, people say, what about IVs? What about glutathione injections? Well, number one, injections go for about 60 to 80 bucks. IVs, which are far more effective than injections, go for about $200 to $300 per infusion. Take about an hour to do it right. And then it takes, if you do an IV and you spend all that money, guess what happens? Your half-life of the particles is still averages 90 minutes. So you get about a 6-hour bang for the buck and a 24 to 30-hour tail that's pretty impotent after $200 to $300. Not wise, especially when for under $2 a serving, you can take as many servings as you need to during a day, during an event. I'm 77. I typically will swish in the morning and then again in the late afternoon. There's some days where, because of our technology, and a secret that we haven't told anybody yet, but it's a neat secret, we've actually have a piece of our technology that we now have evidence that it may triple the half-life of glutathione. Nobody else has that, folks. So that's pretty doggone cool. Now, what does glutathione do? Well, glutathione, I started to write a letter to a scientist today who is into athletic performance and neurological performance. And I was going to introduce him to glutathione and try to do it in 2 paragraphs. I've got a Zoom call with him tomorrow. Very important call. This person influences, honestly, the outcome if this person could influence millions of people. And, but I decided there's just too much to say about glutathione to put into 2 paragraphs. But what does it do? Well, number one, it enables your blood cells, your hemoglobin, your red blood cells, to carry oxygen. Now, we take oxygen transfer for granted, but you shouldn't, because when hemoglobin is manufactured, it has iron molecules in it. And if those iron molecules have the wrong charge, if they have a positive charge of a +3, then the hemoglobin cannot bind and carry oxygen. And we die after a few breaths, right? Goes into your lungs, never goes anywhere else. But if those +3 particles their charge is changed to a +2, now that can be absorbed into the cytoplasm and can actually be carried and delivered, released to the cells. The only reduction agent for the iron in hemoglobin is glutathione. Do you know I've talked to thousands of doctors at symposiums? So far, I haven't had one that knew that. Why? Well, because there's over 190,000 published studies on glutathione. It's the most studied molecule in medicinal science. If you take other antioxidants, because glutathione, one of its functions is its antioxidant function. If you took all the other antioxidants, vitamin C, vitamin E, CoQ10, superoxide dismutase, vitamin A, and looked at all the studies on those, they would not equal the 190,000 studies on glutathione. Glutathione is the most studied molecule. Why? Because it has the greatest impact. It influences everything about you. It influences your health, your longevity, your recovery from exertion, physical exertion and mental exertion, your recovery from illnesses, your recovery from injuries. All of the above are incredibly impacted by glutathione. I'll give you some more examples. We already know about oxygen transfer. We learned about the importance of the immune system during the COVID pandemic, right? If people with strong immune systems survived, and that was the vast majority, thankfully. People with compromised immune systems died. And those that didn't die with compromised immune system were sick for a very long time. Do you know there are world-class athletes today that can't compete because of the long-term effect of going through COVID? They can't get their heart performing to the level that it performed before they got COVID as far as oxygen output. We impact all of that. Okay, so let's talk about some of the other things. We're talking about the immune system. Whenever there's a bacterial or viral insult enters your body, your immune system goes to work and produces two types of assassins. The most prolific type, the one that's most important by far, are the T cells. And how fast the T cells can reproduce is entirely dependent on glutathione. For example, if you have the bacteria or virus is reproducing at a rapid rate. If you have high glutathione levels, your T cells can reproduce at a rapid rate. If your immune system, or if your glutathione levels are lower, which most people do have lower glutathione systems, the vast majority in the world, and even in tier 1 countries, tier 2, tier 3, doesn't matter. Glutathione levels for a whole bunch of reasons are low, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But low glutathione levels, your T cells reproduce slowly, sluggishly, while the bacteria or virus is reproducing rapidly or even explosively. Bacteria or virus wins, you lose. Now, higher glutathione levels, like I say, reproduce rapidly and can reproduce even explosively. So, what's the problem? The problem is your glutathione levels decline by 8 to 15% every decade. Now I'm 7.5 decades long. Okay, I'm 76. I'll be 77 in August. And so I should have about 40 to 45% of the glutathione today that I had at the age of 20. 60 to 65% drop. That's not good, because all the needs for those 400 functions, including all the defensive needs, because your cells are under constant attack, constant bombardment of toxic chemicals, free radicals, and so on. We need glutathione more the older we get, but we have less of it. So the assault goes up, the levels go down. That's bad news. In fact, there's studies that show that the declining glutathione levels result in opening the gateway to every major disease. One study in particular demonstrated that biochemically back in 2009. You name the disease, it's included. Heart disease, pulmonary diseases, autoimmune diseases, diabetes, kidney diseases. They all, let's see, I gotta let that guy in. They are all impacted by the lowering of glutathione. In fact, the article, I don't know if Michael has it. You could put it out there on the chat, Michael, if you do. But it's titled. It's in the Journal of the Cell, and the title is, you can search it out. Glutathione dysregulation and the onset and progression of human disease. I think that's the title, but I have it, and hopefully Michael has it. And It came out in 2009, had over 600 citations to other studies, published studies. And unfortunately, the publisher would only put 300 in because that took up 4 pages of the 20-page article. So anyway, you name the disease, lowering glutathione makes us, raises our risk of getting that disease. Now, glutathione, like I say, it can shorten how long you're in a disease state or ill by lowering or by aiding the replication of the T cells, but also by lowering inflammation. Do you know that inflammation puts a wall in your cell that can obstruct the normal function of that cell? And guess what happens? An injury takes longer to heal. An illness takes longer to recover from, and so on. Inflammation is our mortal enemy for a whole bunch of reasons. And it's an enemy to how we perform each day. Everybody on this call is a performer. We wake up and now we got to get busy. How well you perform mentally and physically, how fast you recover from mental and physical exertion is all glutathione related. Okay, what else does glutathione do? Well, it is the detoxifier of the cell. I just read a blurb by Teddy Kennedy, or not Teddy, I'm sorry, Bobby Kennedy today, that there are 10,000 chemicals in our food supply in the United States, and only 400 of those chemicals are in Europe. Now, all of those chemicals are not supposed to be in your body. What do? Glutathione has this real sticky sulfhydryl molecule that is like sticky spider traps, fly traps, and it sticks to the chemical and helps get it out of the cell. Well, that's critical. That's detoxifying the cell. Why is that so critical? Because 95% of all cancers gain traction in the human body from the broken mitochondrial DNA. What breaks the mitochondrial DNA? 2 things: the chemical load in the cell primarily, and the free radical assault on the DNA. Now, what does glutathione do? Well, when it comes to detox, it's the detoxifier. So as it lowers the chemical, as we raise glutathione levels, we lower the chemical load in the cell and we prolong the integrity of the mitochondrial DNA. Really important. 95% of all cancers gain traction because of the broken mitochondrial DNA. What else breaks the mitochondrial DNA? We're going to talk about that next. They're called free radicals. Free radical is a scavenger. It's an ROS molecule, which means reactive oxygen species. And it wants to steal an electron from the cell. And when that does it, 2 terrible things happen. Actually, 3. Number 1, it accelerates the aging of the cell. Do you want your skin, your heart, your brain, your kidneys to age more rapidly or more slowly? I vote for slow. The other thing that oxidative stress does is it causes inflammation. So it's a primary source of inflammation in the cell. It also causes more free radicals to be constructed, which then create more oxidative stress, and so you can see it's just a vicious cycle. An antioxidant works by donating one of its electrons to the free radical, and when that donation is made, it sequesters or captures that free radical and disposes of it. That's huge. Now, there's lots of types of free radicals. They have different sources. Some are sourced from the oxygen in our body. That's the majority. Some are sourced from hydrogen. Some are sourced from nitrogen. So, they have different chemical compositions and structures. And there's a whole spectrum of free radicals. Well, all antioxidants except glutathione are monofocus. That means they can deal with one but can't deal with any of the others. So vitamin E can deal with this type, but it leaves all these bad guys. Vitamin C deals with that, but it leaves all of those. CoQ10, superoxide dismutase, catalase, they all deal with one type. Glutathione is called the master antioxidant because, like the master key of the hotel that can open any and every door in the hotel, glutathione as the master antioxidant can sequester and neutralize all free radicals regardless of their source, their structure, or their composition. It's the only one that can. And we have a lot of new free radicals that our grandparents didn't have to deal with. For example, peroxynitrite. It is one of the most egregious, aggressive, vicious free radicals we know about. It lasts 1 billion times longer than oxygen-based free radicals. It attacks that DNA, and it lasts so long it can actually transfer from one cell to another. Guess where it comes from? Those nice 5G towers that send the microwaves into your body. Those microwaves interact with with nitrogen in our body, which we have to have to live. And but it interacts with the nitrogen and produces peroxynitrite. Wow. No antioxidant can phase it, can touch it, can impact it in any way except glutathione. And glutathione takes care of it, takes it out, sequesters it, captures it, and neutralizes it. So glutathione is this critical molecule to that. What else does glutathione do? Because it does all of that, high levels accelerate wound healing, lower levels decelerate wound healing. They prolong the process of wound healing. And if you're diabetic, you know there are some wounds that just don't heal. They take forever or they don't heal at all. And then you end up having a toe or a foot or a leg amputated. Not a pretty picture. Okay, wound healing is critical. And critical to that is reducing the oxidative stress caused by free radicals and the inflammation caused by those free radicals. And that's what glutathione does. So it is so critical. Why don't we all go out and buy glutathione capsules? Because like we learned earlier, if they're not liposomal, they're destroyed in the stomach, worthless. If they are liposomal, most cannot get into the cell. The pore, we'll say those are 2 pores. We'll say this is a cell. The average cell is 100 nanometers in diameter. Now, compared to a strand of your hair, a hair is 100 or 80,000 nanometers. And this piece of typing paper, let's see if we can see it, is 100,000 nanometers thick. A cell is only 100 nanometers, not 100,000, 100. And the pore in those cells that any particle has to go through to get into the cell is only 10 nanometers. Bad news for liposomes, not bad news for hydrostat at all. That's why we see what nobody else in the world sees. Okay. And so, Michael, let's show them a couple instances. I knew when we first developed this that if we had done what I thought we had done, we'd make a huge difference with athletes. Now, we look at world-class athletes. Why? Or even well-conditioned athletes, because their baselines are normal. You take a conditioned athlete, like my son that works out, and the number of push-ups he does is stable. One day he can do, we'll say 60, the next day he can do 65, a bad day he might do 55, but it's a stable baseline, so it's hard to make significant changes. You have to have something that is very significant to change their baseline. My baseline, easy to change. I might go from 1 push-up to 2 push-ups. Woohoo! That's 100% increase. No, it's not. I just have a real unstable baseline, see? And so I sent some out. First, I gave it to one athlete, an endurance athlete who tried it before his 2-hour workout, which is an hour running at a 25-degree incline on his treadmill, followed by an hour of very intense rowing. And he called me that night and said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't get any inflammation in my knees. Steve, my knees aren't killing me. This is unbelievable." Next day he woke up, he wasn't stiff, he wasn't sore. He says, "I have 10 years of doing this workout for the first time. I don't have to use a roller on my legs. I don't have to do yoga. I don't have to do my stretching. Man, I am good to go when I wake up." Well, I sent it to another athlete named Bill Gillespie. And we'll go to his picture. Bill was the strength and conditioning coach for a National Football League team, the Seattle Seahawks. He's been an amateur weightlifter his whole life. He was the U.S. champion in shot put when he was in college, 2 years in a row. And he was the world record holder in the bench press. Now, you can see him lifting that weight right there. There's over 1,000 pounds on that bar. Well, when he was 49 years old, he set the world record at 804 pounds, which was, 804 pounds to kilos. 364 kilos. I called him 10 years later, 2018, after we had made our breakthrough, said, "Bill, how you doing?" He said, "Not good." He said, "My job's still okay." But he said, "Steve, I've lost lean muscle. I've lost a lot of weight. I can only lift, my best lift is only about 700 pounds. I said, "Well, Bill, for a 59-year-old, that's a lot of weight." He says, "It's world record for a 59-year-old, but I don't get to compete with the elite guys anymore that are pushing 800 pounds or 900 pounds. I'm out of competition. I can't compete with them. And because of my loss of lean muscle, I can only lift heavy once a week. I used to be able to lift heavy 4 times a week." Well, for him, heavy lifting used to be 450 to 500 pounds, sets and reps. Well, I said, "I think my product's going to change that." We sent it to him, and here's what happened. At 59, his lift went to 915 pounds. At 60, 6 months after he started, it went to 1,050 pounds. And at 62, at his retirement meet, he lifted 1,129 pounds, a new world record. That's 512 kilos. That's as much as a grand piano weighs. And that's how much he benched. Now you say, how could he possibly do that? That's 40% more weight than he lifted when he was in his prime. Well, number one, glutathione increases lean muscle production. No matter how old you are, it still increases. It slows down the deterioration and has even been shown to increase lean muscle. Number two, you're reducing oxidative stress, which means you're not going to fatigue physically or mentally near as fast. And what happens? You end up performing at a much higher level. That's what he did. And he kind of kept it a secret. He didn't even like telling me how much he swished, but he would swish, honestly, 4 to 5 times a day, typically 5 to 7 minutes per swish. And I said, "Bill, that's overkill." He said, "When you can lift 1,000 pounds, tell me what works for you." And he went back to lifting 4 times a week, but not 400 or 500, sets and reps of 700, 750, even 800 pounds, 10 reps of 800 pounds. Can you imagine lifting a baby grand piano 10 times or a grand piano? Anyway, that's our brother Bill. One of our athletes was in a wreck during a race. Her face she hit the pavement at 22 miles an hour. It was a bicycling race. And she was hospitalized Saturday, Sunday, Monday, went home Tuesday night. The plastic surgeon said her face was so shredded. I mean, we're talking abrasions, road rash, everything. The plastic surgeon said it'll take 5 weeks to heal. And then come see me 60 days after that, and we'll work out the protocol for the scarring. She gets home on Tuesday night, says, "I think this stuff's nano." So she pours some on a cotton ball, puts it on all of her wounds and scabs and everything. and keeps swishing, by the way, does that once on Tuesday night, 3 times, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. By Sunday, her face was completely clear, not a scar, not a mark. The plastic surgeon was in shock. I showed that to doctors. I'm not allowed to show it on a call like this, but to doctors, I can show it as an effect of our product. We don't diagnose, prevent, cure, treat any disease. We're a supplement. But her face was better and she needed no plastic surgery, and that was huge. Well, when I saw it, I've owned 5 cosmetic companies, and when I saw that, I knew we had the world's best skincare product. So we're going to show you these pictures, and then we're going to call it a night for this week. Hey, Michael, let's go. So, and zoom in on this, please. So this is Sherry Warner. She was 58 years old, and I gave everybody in the test group, I said, spray your face 5 times a day. It won't cause your makeup to run, and do that for 8 weeks. Well, this was after 7 weeks when she sent me the picture. My former formulator, who was president of the American Association of Cosmetic Chemists, became the head formulator for Allergan, the company that created Botox. And when he saw this picture, he said, Steve, she's had a facelift. Nothing can do that. This is even lightening her face. Come on, Steve. I said, John, I've known her for 15 years. She's a farmer. She lives on a farm, works on a farm. Believe me, she hasn't had a facelift. I said, this is what's coming back to us. Showed him some more, and he said, you have something nobody else in the world has. Okay, we're going to run through some now. Most of these people are also swishing. Some are just spraying. Okay, here we go. Those were my hands. I was 71. I sprayed my right hand, not my left hand. You can see the difference. I sprayed 5 times a day for 12 weeks. I grew lazy. This is an 84-year-old. We asked her how much did she swish and spray. She said she kept bottles all over the house, and she sprayed. She said, every time I passed a bottle, I sprayed, and when I passed a bottle of swish, I'd swish. Look at that. Look at her mouth, her chin, her neck. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. That was 4 weeks. Next. This is another 80-plus-year-old, and her daughter is one of our distributors who has the team in Greece, even though she lives in Chicago. Look at that. She said, I had old lady legs. Now I have young lady legs. And boy, is that true. 10 weeks. Next. Okay, that was 8 days with an esthetician who owns a skincare salon. She said, Steve, I can't wait 8 weeks. Look at where did my pores go? Look how much smoother, how much brighter. Look how it opened up my eyes. There's nothing that does this. Next. Okay, she's 60 years old. 1 month, good change. Looks like she had a facelift, but look what happened after 6 months. She came into our office at 6 months. She looks like she looks like a 42-year-old, not a 60-year-old. There she is. Next. Almost done. He's 67. That was 6 weeks. Here are the adjectives to remember: brighter, tighter, smoother, brighter, tighter, smoother, and younger looking. And what are they doing? You spray and swish. You'd spray at least, I'd say, at least 4 times a day. Won't cause your makeup to run. Next. Okay, that was 10 days. Next. Okay, that was just 10 days. But look at where she didn't have any problem, but look how even her skin tone is, and where did her pores go? She's as smooth as silk now. Next. 83 years old in 3 weeks. Next. By the way, she's now, I think, 88. Okay, that's a 60 plus, and she had been a smoker. Look at what happened to her neck and her face. Okay, 6 days. Next. 4 weeks in Nigeria. Her daughter, a doctor, gave her the product, and look at the difference it made. Next. Next. Okay, he's 94. I love this guy. He says, I love the new look, but he said, more than the look, I love how I feel. I feel like the guy on the right, not the guy on the left. And finally, last one, 87-year-old I met in Hungary. I said, how often do you spray? She said, just like you said, 7 weeks, 5 times a day. Look at her face. I mean, is that crazy? Okay, why do we show that? Number one, we have the world's best skincare product. It's called Numi Skin. But number two, the same biochemical action that is promoting this in skin cells, which are living tissue, living cells, they're doing the same thing in your brain, your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, your pancreas, your ligaments, your joints. So we see it everywhere. And we hope you'll join us. We have a lot of fun. We're very grateful for one another. Together, we're now in 75 countries, reaching a lot of people. And we have, if you haven't checked out our medical review board or medical science board, just Google search Numi Medical Board and the link will come up. And you'll see doctors from Stanford, Mayo Clinic, Harvard, University of California, Baylor Medical, Texas Heart Institute, and on and on. Great guys, and they all work with us for free because they've seen the results. Michael, back to you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Steve. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't done it yet, if you'd like to see heaps more of those before and after photographs, testimonials, etc., if you go to Facebook and go to search Numi New You, that is the official page, and there'll be plenty in there you can dig through and have a look at. In the meantime, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you've been joining us from.